Hi. My name is Adam. I'm 48. My wife Amanda is a year younger than me. We started dating back in college. Then the wedding. She is a tall, slender brunette with long hair and, despite her age, a beautiful figure. We had a good, boring family life. At the same time, we both took place in life, made successful careers, each in his own field. We traveled all over the world. We raised 2 children. I was happy. 3 years ago, my wife told me that she invited her friend, also Amanda, to one of the weekends. In general, if they meet, it is usually somewhere in a cafe, park or somewhere else. But that time it was decided at our house. And my wife asked me to go somewhere so they could sit quietly, have a drink, chat and all that. It was a completely normal request, because I must say that our circle of friendly communication is very small and separate. Besides this Amanda, she has only 2 other friends, and I communicate with only one friend from college. However, this was not always the case. In the first half of our life together we hung out a lot in different places and in large companies. But, apparently, the age. So, Sunday has come. At about 12 o'clock, my wife said she was going to meet a friend. Then they planned to take a short walk in the nearest park and will come in 2 hours. I replied that I would leave in an hour and asked when to return. Amanda said about 7 o'clock. And she left. After an hour, I started packing. And suddenly, I realized that I wanted to know what they were going to talk about. Why? I don't know. I hesitated, realizing the ambiguity of, let's say, such an intention. After hesitating, I nevertheless took out my tablet, turned it on and put it away in a large cabinet in the room where they were going to sit. And he left. I arrived about 9 o'clock. My friend was no longer there. I asked my wife how everything went. She replied that everything was very good. At about 11 o'clock she went to bed, and I said I'd stay up and went to the kitchen. A little later, I went into another room, took out my tablet and returned to the kitchen, plugged in my headphones and turned on the recording. At first I heard them coming from the street. Then for a while I could only hear their distant voices. Finally they came into the room, put everything on the table and sat down at it. They opened the champagne. I could hear their conversation very well now. They talked about all sorts of nonsense, about everything and nothing. In general, the usual babble about nothing. For about 2 hours, then they went into the kitchen and for 15 to 20 minutes I heard only voices, but not what they were talking about. When they returned, I realized that in the kitchen they began to discuss completely different subjects, namely personal life and sex. Moreover, it was clear from their questions to each other that they were mutually aware of what was happening. So, my wife reported some of our sexual relations. As I said, she is a very attractive woman, and we have them. But Amanda, a friend, said that she and her husband had not been in touch for 2 years, and also that she continued to meet with one of her supervisors at work. Which, as I understood it, my wife was aware of. We talked a little more about various intimate issues, discussed oral sex in detail. A friend, drunk, laughingly gave out that any good subordinate should hold a part of the boss in her mouth. And after a few minutes of their rather piquant conversation, what happened was why this whole story. Amanda, a friend, asked her wife, "Tell me, Dogo Gaya, how did it happen that you cheated on him so much, and he never found out about it?" It's quite difficult to convey what I felt when I heard it. If someone was in such a situation, they will understand me. At first it seems that all this is not happening to you. I just sat and listened to their conversation for the next hour or so. I listened as if fascinated. I will not retell everything I heard here, especially with details. I will only say that I knew that my wife was good about sex, but I was still surprised more than once listening to this part of the conversation. In general, I found out that the first episode happened in '98, that is, 3 years after the wedding, and the last one 3 years before their meeting, which I describe. I also found out about at least 5 of my wife's one-time or more or less long-term lovers. And about 2 episodes when she participated in group sex. Once it was her friend Amanda, and her supervisor, with whom she has been cheating on her husband for many years. Oh, the second one was when we went to Costa Rica. I then went fishing for 2 days, and she had a fun night with the mulatto bartender and 2 of his friends, also from the hotel staff. So it turns out that's why they smiled at me so cheerfully and were so helpful to me until our departure. Moreover, this is only what she herself told about these cases, with facts and details. But, as it followed from her revelations, and from the words of a friend, this was far from the whole list. However, there was also something to impress. So, for example, at the age of 33, she had an affair, about 2 months, as I understood it, with some dude 10 years younger than her. She suggested their first sex. When they were walking past a hotel, she asked him if he wanted to come in and arrange a room. Or there was a connection with some foreigner we met at his apartment. According to her stories, he was very scared of the possibility of becoming infected with the virus. So they practiced other ways to satisfy each other. She soon got tired of this, as she always preferred the classical genre. There were a few more interesting places, but that's enough. Summing up this part of the conversation, Amanda's girlfriend said somewhat dreamily, "Yes, Amanda. There will be something to remember later." At this phrase, despite my condition, I laughed. Her wife replied to her that she didn't know everything yet. Then they returned to some general topics about different things, and after an hour and a half, the friend began to pack and soon left, and her wife went to see her off. Now about my condition. Initially, I did not want a significant number of erotic descriptions of what I heard to appear in the text, nor do I want to describe my condition in detail. I think that it is already clear to everyone. And what happened next? I sat in the kitchen for a while, being impressed. I thought I'd postpone the conversation until morning. But at about 3 in the morning I went to my wife and woke her up. As soon as she came to her senses, I told her that I had recorded the conversation. To be honest, it doesn't make much sense to retell the conversation that lasted several hours before she left for work. Anyone who has been in such situations knows what these conversations with long pauses are like, when at some point you suddenly realize that everything has already been said, but you want to say something else, although you perfectly understand that all this is pointless. And there were such conversations for a month and a half or 2 after this event. Almost every day. Or rather, they were variations of the same conversation. Of course, they also talked about divorce. But I probably didn't have a serious intention to do it. For various reasons. And it would be quite difficult to describe them here. There were a lot of good things. Children. The question immediately arose how they would take it. Although they live their own lives, they are still very attached to us. Shared memories. And I also love her. And something else besides that, and, also, I think that the vacation that came soon helped. We decided not to cancel the trip, to go together, and it turned out to be a good decision at that time. Anyway, we're still together. And a short epilogue to a short story. First, why did I write it? I don't know. But certainly not so that someone from the readers would hurry to draw some correct conclusions. Well, for example, about my wrong behavior after it happened. Rather, I just wanted to describe such a life situation. Of course, it might seem to someone that the tone of the story is quite light, judging by the content. However, this is not the case. I just don't want to dramatize things too much. And the second, I don't know how anyone will react, but some kind of reassurance began to bring me the thought that I began to be turned on by the way I imagine that someone else is my wife. So, I plan to offer her a trip to the swinger club. Because I feel like I need to shake myself up and come off. Subscribe. Like it. Bye.